Okay, here we are. I think this may turn into quite a long lesson, but it's a very cool concept, and I think it's going to give you some stuff to work on for some time. I was watching a Dave DeCenso solo recently, and he's well worth checking out. He's an excellent player. And the concept that he had behind this solo was that he had a little motif that he would play, and he would solo around that. And his motif was every third note on the tom, it kind of went ding. So here's your tempo: 1, 2, 3, 4. Ga 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 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Da 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 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Bam bam bam. So it's a 2-bar phrase, and he's playing 1 and a 2 and on the tom. Okay, so let me give you a quick example of what that sounds like. So by itself, that's a really nice concept to take to develop a solo that sounds musical. It forces you to phrase things, and phrasing is really the most important part of soloing. If you just sit down and play a whole flurry of notes for 10 minutes, then nobody has anything to grasp hold of. But just putting in this little motif like that makes it easy for you to kind of know what you're doing. It's kind of like putting full stops into sentences. So it gives you a rest. I mean, you can even have a whole thing where you don't play anything, you just have a rest, and then you have that ding, 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 and it'll work because it is something for the listener to grab hold of. So that's not what this lesson is about, though. That's a concept you can work on. This lesson is about something that he did and he didn't talk about, which was the fact that he played his hi-hat on every third note. So he played his hi-hat with the tom, ding, 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 but then kept that going over the 2-bar phrase. And this doesn't stay in time if you play a 2-bar phrase. So let me demonstrate that. I'm going to keep the hi-hat playing the quarter note, and I'm going to play the tom going ding, 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 like that. And I'm going to play the snare drum every third note and keep that going through the 2-bar phrase. And you'll see that on the second bar it doesn't line up, and then the third bar it doesn't line up. So this is marking the quarter note, this is playing the motif, and this is playing every third note. So you see that it resolves. You have one of them where it's with the tom, and then the next one it's not with the tom, it's on a different part of the triplet, and then the next one it's not again, and then the third time round, or the fourth time round, sorry, it lines up again. So Dave was playing his hi-hat on every third note. So I'll demonstrate that. So just pay attention to the fact, try and count the 2-bar phrases and note where this tom rhythm is coming, the beginning of the first bar. And just note how that this lines up with the hi-hat the first time, but the second and third times it doesn't, and then it comes back. Okay, so I got screwed up the second time round, and it's easy to get lost with this because you're kind of relying on your left foot to keep this every third note cycle going, and you're also trying to keep a track of the 2-bar phrase in your mind so that you can play this in the right place, and you only need to drop a 16th note with one of those for this to go out of sync. So I would recommend playing to some kind of click, but even so, you could have this coming in the right place with a 2-bar phrase, but you might accidentally play every 4th note on one of the things with this to put it out of sync. So it's fairly complicated to jump straight into the deep end and try and get this working with a solo. So what I was doing to try and get comfortable with it was applying this concept to a groove. That's what we're going to talk about now. So this is a kind of Gary Chester New Breed approach. That's a book, The New Breed by Gary Chester, that I highly recommend checking out. The concept I use in a lot of my lessons, and it's basically that you have a system which is something that is fixed, kind of an ostinato. So in this case, the system is going to be the right hand playing 8th notes on the ride cymbal, the snare drum playing a backbeat, and then we're going to overlay the hi-hat playing every 3rd note. So let's do that to begin with. So the idea is that you play this, and then you would take a page of reading from the Gary Chester book and play that on the bass drum. And you might take a 1-bar phrase or a 2-bar phrase or a 4-bar phrase and repeat it. And you're always going to have to go, unless you're using a 3-bar phrase, then you're going to have to play this phrase 3 times over if it's any even number. So let me give you an example of what I mean. If I play on the bass drum the 1 and then the 3 and, it's going to sound like this. So you might notice that I find a couple of those a little trickier than others to play. Now, if you're not really focusing on the hi-hat, you might not notice that they are different on every bar. If I move my left foot onto the bass drum, you'll hear that the pattern, the kind of relation between the bass drum and the right foot and the left foot changes, and you get 3 lots of this bass drum pattern before it lines up with the hi-hat again. So I'm going to play exactly the same thing, move my left foot onto the left bass drum pedal, and then you'll hear the interaction of those 2 rhythms. So what I've been doing is taking the Gary Chester book and taking the pages of reading, and I'll work on just 1 bar with my right foot against that, and I'll be comfortable with that. And I know that I have to play that 1 bar 3 times before the thing is repeating, because the second time you play it, this is out of sync, and then the third time you play it, it's out of sync again. Then when you've done 3 bars of it, it comes back in sync. So then I might take a 2-bar rhythm for the bass drum and do the same thing, loop that 2-bar section, and then I'll take a 4-bar rhythm, which is 1 line of the book, and play that. And then when I'm kind of comfortable with those, I'll try and do the whole page of reading on the bass drum. And this is working on coordination, it's working on concentration and the kind of independence, the ability for this left foot to just keep playing every 3rd note. It's working on a whole bunch of things, and I find it really challenging when I started out with this, especially when you get into some of the 16th note grouping patterns, you know, 1E, A2E, A, da, 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 you've got 16th note stuff with the bass drum. It's pretty tricky. but it's kind of useful. And so once I'd done that, then I moved on to the solo aspect of it, and we'll cover that in the next lesson. But for now, take this concept away, have a play around with it, leave some comments, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.